Video went down really well actually. It's already had 1 view since yesterday, and so that's one. No, wait, that was me. That was me just checking it works. Oh, never mind. As soon as people hear about this one, it's just going to go mad. It's going to go viral. Right, you know what to do. Type in aqa.org.uk into your browser address bar, and you will find the AQA website. Subjects: religious studies, GCSE. Spec B is the one that you're doing, and you want past papers and mark schemes once again. Might as well stay with June 2011. Some good questions that year. Let's do Unit 3 because that's the one that most of you are doing. No, you're all doing Unit 3 actually. This is the question paper from that year. Because it's Friday and everyone's happy, let's cheer ourselves up by doing this question here about elderly people and death. So again, look at the picture below. You're going to give yourself about 20 minutes to answer this. If you're really keen, you might want to pause this video and attempt the question first, and then hear the answers afterwards. It's just one idea. But anyway, the picture is of someone who's on a oxygen tank thing in bed, presumably in hospital, and on the clipboard it says do not resuscitate. So that means don't bring that person back to life. Don't try and kickstart them back to life if they appear to be dying. So it's a bit grim, but anyway, question 6. Remember when you do a different question, by the way, to write the correct number in. Don't think, oh, this is a new question, so this is question 1 on death. Just stick to these numbers here. So it's 06 you write in, and it says explain briefly what is meant by passive euthanasia. So hopefully you remember that euthanasia means gentle and easy death. So it's when you help somebody to die, and you can do that passively by just not treating somebody. So the answer, to get 2 marks, you just say passive euthanasia is where you don't treat the patient. You stop the treatment, or you withhold drugs that they might need or medical care that they might need to survive longer, and you stop prolonging their life and allow them to die. E.g. turning off a life support machine would be passive euthanasia. So that's 2 marks. Off to a good start. Question 7. Explain one religious belief about life after death. When the examiner emboldens a word, it's to draw your attention to it, obviously. So it wants you to stick to one particular religious belief, not just reel off loads of different ones, because it wants you to explain one of them in more detail. So rather than just say heaven and hell, rebirth and reincarnation, and think that you're going to get 3 marks, you wouldn't. You'd only get 1 mark for that, because it says explain one of them in more detail. So I would, if I were you, just stick to the Christian belief about life after death, and just get 3 marks by saying that Christians believe that after you die there is a judgment. God will let you into heaven if you've repented for your sins and lived a good life, or if you haven't and you've been really horrible, he might instead leave you to go to hell, like a horrible fiery place with a red bloke who beats you up and stuff. Don't write that, obviously, but just say that there's some sort of judgment. There's heaven, which is a good place, and hell, which is a bad place where God isn't. And that would get you probably all the 3 marks. If you wanted to make sure, just write something extra, like they believe that you stay there for eternity, or something like that. Okay, question 8 is one of those opinion ones where you have to say what you think. So it says, only God should decide when a person dies. What do you think? Explain your opinion. Like I said, you definitely know the answer to all these questions, because the answer is in your mind. If you don't know, just ask yourself what you think, and you will think of the answer. So it says only God should decide when a person dies. So I don't know what I think about this. Doesn't really matter. I'd probably Okay, I'm going to say that I agree with this, I think. I'll just say, yes, I agree. Only God should decide when a person dies, because God's the one who gave you your life. And life is precious and sacred, and it should not be destroyed. So it should be down to God. Also, it's more natural that way. So humans aren't deciding that to kill people earlier. It should be God who makes that choice. And I'll say, to get another mark, something like, God has a plan for all our lives. So even if you're at the point in your life where you think that there's no point suffering anymore, well, maybe there is some sort of point to that. No one ever said that your life should be pain-free and totally happy. So God should be the one who chooses when a person dies. That's quite a tricky question, actually, quite a hard one to think what your opinion is. You could argue the other side by saying, no, only God shouldn't. It should be down to humans to decide when a person dies, because we've got compassion and we care for each other, and if somebody wants to die, then they should have the right to. You could argue down that side if you wanted to. Anyway, question 9 is, explain religious attitudes to the way the elderly should be treated, and refer to some religious teachings in your answer. So make sure that you do try and include some religious points in this one, otherwise you can't get all 4 marks. If you just give non-religious answers, you can only get a maximum of 2. So if you can't think of any religious teachings, just give some non-religious answers first. So you could just say, most religious people would probably say that the elderly should be treated well, because they have contributed a lot to the country. They have lived their life and deserve respect for having a lot of wisdom. Generally, they're quite nice people as well, and sometimes they're vulnerable and they need looking after. And they've brought you and your generation up into the world and looked after you, so that's why you should treat them with respect. And then try and think of some religious teachings to make sure you get all the marks. So you could use one of the 10 commandments is that you should honour your father and mother. And there's also Islamic teaching that says show kindness to both your parents. That's written in the Quran. Another one that's quite a funny quote is one that Muhammad said. He said one time, "May his nose be rubbed in dust who found his parents approaching old age and did not look after them, for he will lose his right to enter paradise." So that's quite a good quote that Muhammad said about why you should look after the elderly people. Also, you could include the general belief that in some of the Eastern religions, like Hinduism, they tend to live with their extended family, and elderly people are seen as having lots of wisdom, and they're really well respected. So that's probably, I said loads more there than I needed to get 4 marks. So if you can even say a bit of that stuff, you'll be on to a winner. Right, the last question. Another controversial one. Wow. Again, I don't know what I think about this. Life support machines should never be used. That's quite a harsh claim. I actually disagree with that. But like I said, my tip is to always agree with it first and try and say 3 points why you would agree with it, and maybe get a religious point in there, and then say 3 reasons why you might not agree with that statement, or get 3 points to say why you don't agree. So I'll start off and say, yes, I agree with that. Life support machines should not be used because it goes against nature. If somebody is on life support and they wouldn't live without a machine to breathe for them, then that's not really a natural state to be in. It prolongs the suffering of the family, who are sort of holding out hope that that person might come back, and they probably won't. So it's keeping people alive unnecessarily, which takes up resources that can't be used for other people. And also, in some cases where the patient hasn't got any brain activity, then is that person really alive? Probably not. So it's a waste of hope and resources to keep them alive on life support. There was one case where someone was kept on life support for about 4 years after a tragic accident, and it just brought more heartbreak to their family. So turn it off. And however, some people may disagree, like me, because I think life support machines should be used, because it's a way of prolonging life in the hope that the person might get better. There have been cases where people have come back to life or regained consciousness after being kept on life support for a while, and it's a way of giving the doctors time to figure out whether they can make a full recovery, and it might be possible. And also, to get a religious quote in, it's more loving to do that. So Jesus said you should love your neighbour and care for the vulnerable, and it's a way of trying to value life. Just because someone might not have a brilliant life now and they're on life support doesn't mean you should just give up on them. That life might have a purpose, it might be worth living. And also, this is quite a sort of cynical way of thinking about it, but if you use life support machine, then it keeps the organs more oxygenated, so that if they do decide later to turn it off, they can use those organs for transplant surgery to help other people live as well. Right, and if you said all that again, you get 6 marks definitely. So that's pretty much how to get 100% on that question. Remember, to get a C grade, you should try and get about 11 marks out of 18. But obviously, try and get as many as you can. If you can get all the marks there, then you will get an A star. There's no doubt about it. And if you do that on all the other questions, you'll just definitely get an A star. So obviously, that's what you're all aiming for. And so good luck, and try and get as many points as you can. And tune in tomorrow or some other day in the future when I'll do more videos. Okay, bye.